Hello and welcome to another episode of Sports and Songs Podcast. Today we've got a bonus episode. My name is Dan. Today is December 11th, 2023. This episode is called Minnesota Twins Offseason Update. Now the reason I'm putting this together is that for many Twins fans, this offseason's been a little light. Not much activity, not much movement. Fans are looking for big breaking, late breaking news, big transactions, and all of these fun things. Well, the Twins are not in a situation this year to do that. They certainly may be active in the trade market later, but that's different than the free agent market. Let's go to the spreadsheet. What we've got is the Minnesota Twins organization on an Excel file here. All the way down from the very top to the Minnesota Twins organization here. The active players down in order of importance here. AAA roster for the Saints, AA for the Wichita Wind Surge, Single A High, Cedar Rapids Colonels. Then we come down here to the Mighty Muscles, which is the Low A Twins affiliate. Then we've got a roster for the Florida Gulf Coast Rookie League, really called the Florida Complex League. This is for the rookies. A lot of guys there. And then down here we've got the Dominican Rookie League as well. So every member, every person, every player in the Twins organization right now is on this list. And as you look at the total over here, column N for each of these, there's a total. We're looking at 223 players. 40-man roster. Grand total for the 40-man roster is 36. Yes, we're 4-man short. That's fine. Top prospects. Every team has a top prospect listing of 30 players. We've got those here in this presentation on this spreadsheet. I've got some color coding here going on. The players in blue are the 40-man roster, which there is 4 open slots. This will also come into play here for this discussion about the off-season. The green is the top 30 prospects. We'll see those shaded in green. Those are prospects, meaning they're planning. The goal for the organization is to have them make the major leagues. The next is the darkish color, which means the person's on the 40-man roster and is a top 30 prospect. And down below at the end, in green, in the orange, are the draft picks from last year. There's 19 draft picks on this list. So from bottom up, let's go way to the top. Here's the Twins' current roster at the top. We've got things going left to right here. Starting pitching, which is the SP. Relief pitching, I've got those in just alphabetical order. And then we've got the depth chart, essentially. Catcher, first base, second base, shortstop, third base, and the outfield. Right now for the total, just to have everyone make sense for those following along, we've got 30 on the roster. All 30 are on the 40-man roster, and there's 0 prospects because they're already in the big leagues. Now, the Twins' active roster can only be 26 players. So right now there's 30 listed here. This is just from the Twins' official source, mntwins.com website. We've got 30. There only can be 26, so we've got 4 extra players already. Those 4 players have got to be either sent down to AAA, cut, removed, traded. Something has to happen. We can't go into the season with 30 players, so we've got more than enough. Now, starting pitchers. Let's go down to the highlighted section there. I've got those listed in order as I think the rotation will be. Lopez as the ace, and then Ryan, Paddock, Ober, and Varland. There's been some talk in the offseason, mainly a lot of talk here with fans on social media saying we need some starters. We need to have starting depth. We need to get someone. We need to get a big name. We've got 5 starters right there. Lopez, Ryan, Paddock. Now Ober, we know is a starter, always has been. And then Varland it's accurate to say that he was moved to the bullpen for the postseason, but they made it abundantly clear that the Minnesota Twins will keep him as a starter. He's always been a starter. He's very good as a starter. And so that's why I've got him there in the starting spot. I don't believe personally that Louis Varland will ever be in the bullpen. So we've got 5 starters. That's what the major league teams have, is 5 starters. Now we can certainly get more. We can certainly pick up another player or two, but we still have to then cut. We still have to get rid of someone. And the point of this broadcast here is that it's going to be tough to do that because we're already very deep. Now, Cole Sands and Josh Winder have always been starters also. They came up through the system as starters. It was only last year when they got relegated to the bullpen to pitch in relief. So really, they're going to be over here in column D. They're really going to be relievers. There's no room for them as starters. There's zero room. So if we've got 30 over here, 30 on the roster, you can only have 26. We've got extras. Now this is why there's been so much talk about Max Kepler being on the trade block, Polanco on the trade block, because we have players behind them. Wallner can play right. Larnach can play right. Willie Castro can play right. Nick Gordon can play right. So Kepler can go. Buxton I've got here as a center fielder. I don't have a spot here on my presentation for DH. They tried that last year. That did not work. Because of his salary, I don't see them cutting him. No one's going to trade for Buxton. So they've got to find a way to get him in the order in the lineup. He's going to have to play center field. Whether he gets hurt often or easy is beside the point. I don't think he's the answer going forward as a DH. So they've got to fit him in. Now, there's been a lot of talk this offseason is who's going to be his backup. Well, we've got Nick Gordon, Willie Castro. Both of those I would consider as serviceable backups. So in this offseason, as we're looking for players here, free agents, trades, offseason pickups, you could certainly very easily see a backup center fielder picked up. But I do believe they're going to head into the season with Buxton being the everyday guy. Royce Lewis has basically won the third base starting job. Correa is being paid the big bucks on that big 6-year deal to be our shortstop. Polanco, another trade bait. We can get something big in return for him and or Kepler. And then we've got Eddie Julian there at second base. He's an on-base machine. He could be a leadoff guy. Now we got an issue at first base. Alex Kirilloff is currently there. Finally got his wrist injuries squared away. Then he had a shoulder issue. Now we got Miranda back on the 40-man roster. Has nowhere to play. Recent reports said that they're going to really primarily train him in the spring preseason to be a first baseman to back up Kirilloff. And then also he can move around and play a little third. He's also healthy. His statistics last year were not that good. It wasn't a true representation as he was injured. So Buxton will be a key point. What to do? I don't think there's much debate. Where else are you going to play Buxton? You're not going to sit him on the bench and you can't trade him. Polanco's been here so many years. He'd be prime trade bait. Julian is the future there of the Twins. Now you still have Kyle Farmer for another year on the roster. So the question is, who are you going to cut when the season begins? And so it's going to have to be someone like a Cole Sands. And when I say cut, I mean from the active roster for the Major League club. So that also could be moved down to AAA. Cole Sands can go to AAA. Josh Winder, AAA. Maybe Belazovic, AAA. Funderburg, AAA. There's 4 right there that could get you. But the fans want a big free agent acquisition. They want a big trade. They want something. Nothing's happened so far. And right now, as we look at the roster, one could argue that we don't need to do anything. We're already set. We're already too deep. But Polanco, great trade bait. Max Kepler, good trade bait. The offset here is when you look at the AAA St. Paul Saints, I've only got 16 players on the roster. 16 players. I have to have 26 once again down here at AAA. So the excess from the Twins will come back down. Some players from AA could come up and fill these spots. Here's where we run into some issues. I'm only showing 4 starters for AAA. The problem is this: Woods Richardson is both a prospect and on the 40-man roster. Those prospects will have a number of the year next to their name, as you see 24 there, is when the Twins, as an organization, expects them to be in the majors. That's this year. Woods Richardson, this year. David Festa, this year. Dobnak and Henriquez aren't on the 40-man roster. They're also not prospects. We did sign Dobnak a few years ago to a long-term deal. He's making over $1 million a year as a AAA starting pitcher. You can throw that into the category called dead money, as I don't think the Twins ever think he's going to make it up there, but they put a lot of investment in him. They also can't, I don't think, just outright cut him. So they got a problem with Dobnak, but he can come up anytime and be a spot starter. Festa they really like. Festa was in the futures game. Really good pitcher. They want to see him up. Richardson has not been doing good, but he's still slated to come up in 2024. If we have 5 starters, like I mentioned earlier, and you got to fit a couple more into the mix, it's going to get interesting. Now, what's given is this: there will be injuries. There will be arm injuries, shoulder injuries. Pitchers always have injuries. You want to have some depth for the Twins organization. You can still use Sands and Winder. I got a feeling, though, they will be relief pitchers. Those can always be used as spot starters along with these guys here. And you've got a bunch of relief pitchers. So if the Twins are looking to make a big acquisition in the free agent market, maybe a reliever. We already have a closer, so it wouldn't be anything to do with Duran. It would have to be a middle reliever setup kind of a pitcher. I don't think there's many out there. So if there's no activity out there for the Twins as far as free agent activity, don't hesitate. Don't get too nervous. I don't believe the Twins are in the market for a free agent relief pitcher. They're in the market for a trade partner for Polanco, a trade partner for Kepler, in the form of a relief pitcher, in the form of a starting pitcher. The pitcher, whether it's a starting or relief pitcher that the Twins are going to get in return of these players that we're going to trade, are not going to be on the free agent list. They're not going to be a free agent because they aren't free agents. Remember, the Twins' priority in the offseason is to work some trade bait. Now, this means the trade could take place in and during spring training. So, don't worry if you don't see anything here in December, January, or February. It could be late. They may wait till spring training starts and some other players, some other teams get injured, and then the stock of these individuals will go right up through the roof and you can really get someone big in return. Once again, the point of the presentation is, if there's no moves by the Minnesota Twins organization, don't be alarmed. There may not be any moves. There may not be any moves. For sure, no free agent moves. There's no free agents out there that the Twins want. They don't have room to pick up someone. They have room to pick up someone only if they get rid of someone. And so that's going to be a trade. So those are two different things. So if we go down to AAA, look who we got coming up. Camargo, already 40-man roster. They like him. He could come up and be the backup catcher already, which means we could now trade or dump Vasquez. Camargo is already ready to come up. Williams had a monster season. Helmet at second, that isn't an issue. Here's the next 3 interesting things here. In fact, there could be 4 interesting things. Brooks Lee, the former #1 draft pick for the Twins, is already a top prospect. And look at that year here, right here, 2024. They've got him slated to come up already. Keep in mind, Brooks Lee is a shortstop. We've got Correa, we've got Farmer, we've got Lewis. Where's Lee going to go? Maybe Lee's the trade deal. Maybe he's the prospect. Maybe he's the guy that goes out the door and we get some big names in return. Don't be surprised to see that. There's no room for Lee in the next few years at shortstop at all in the Twins organization. And he's one of the best. And he's been also fast-tracked. That could be the guy. It may not be a Kepler. It may not be a Polanco. It may not be a Vasquez. Lee could be the guy. Now, we got Severino, third baseman, really good. Also 40-man roster, expected to come up this year as a prospect, as a third baseman. The next question is, where's he going to go? We just hope and pray Lewis doesn't get hurt. But we also have Miranda at third base. So if he's coming up this year, something's got to give. He could be another trade bait potential to be shipped out to get someone big in return. Not as big as Lee. This could draw some blue chip players because Lee could be an immediate starter in the big leagues at another team. It's kind of similar to how Spencer Steer turned out with the Reds last year. But Severino, another guy, not as big, but a talented guy at third. Austin Martin has been floating around in the Twins organization for a couple of years. Came over in the Jose Barrios trade. Expected to come up this year. On the 40-man roster, expected to come up this year. And guess what? Guess where he plays? Came up as a shortstop, can also play a little bit of second base, but they've been grooming him to be a center fielder. There's your answer. There's your answer for Martin, for your center field backup, Austin Martin, right there. Problem is, someone's got to go down. Someone's going to have to get cut. Someone's going to have to be moved out to make room. They're already at 30. Martin could certainly be the guy. I do see him making the opening day roster. Here's the catch. Deshaun Kiersey Jr., outfield, also in AAA this year. Really good. The Twins could not afford to lock him in and move him to the 40-man roster, so he was left exposed for the Rule 5 draft that took place last week. Thankfully, no one picked him up. Kiersey is another guy that's going to be fast-tracked. Very, very good outfielder. Now, we've got Wallner, we've got Buxton, we've got Larnach, we've got Kepler. We already have too many guys. Next year or two, you're going to see Kiersey. I don't think there's enough value in him to trade him per se, but he's a good outfielder that'll start the year in AAA. So for AAA, we've got 16 on the roster, 4 guys on the 40-man roster, and 5 top prospects. Now, all those prospects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 5 are expected to come up this year. So they're not on a 2 or 3 year plan to make it. Those 5 are going to make it or expected to make it this year. Now, typically, at the end of the season, there's maybe one person who's expected to come up that didn't. Someone will get the shaft here or won't. There will not be room, but you can expect the rest to see time sometime at the big leagues this year. The question is where. Now, we'll quickly go through the rest here. AA, Wichita Wind Surge. Interesting thing here for the Wind Surge is that Matt Cantorino on the 40-man roster, top prospect, he's a starting pitcher. He's expected to be up with the Major League club already this year, and he's going to start the year in AA. Now, the Twins like him. Twins also, local hometown boy Varland. We already know they like Padek. They signed him to multi-years. They know they like Ryan, and of course Lopez. Ober could be the odd man out, but I don't see that either. But they got to find room for Cantorino. Another trade bait chip the Twins could have with one of their top prospects is Marco Rhea right here. Now, I've got these ones down here going forward. It's just in alphabetical order by the starters. I don't know who the ace will be and what the order will be here for these lower clubs for the starting pitcher. So I've got these listed alphabetical. But Rhea is one of the top guys. He's expected to be up in the Twins organization in 2025. Now, because he's in only AA right now, you could see him as a relief role. But they like him. He could draw interest for trade bait. And because, once again, we're so deep for starting pitching, Rhea could be the one to go, to be sent to another team in exchange for a blue chipper. Rhea could bring blue chip player to the Minnesota Twins. But keep in mind, they really like Cantorino. Now you've got guys in Double A: Adams, Nolan, no big names there. A couple years they'll be in the hunt. But Rule 5, just last week, the Twins picked up Marcano. He'll start the season in Double A Wichita. He's another starting pitcher that was left unprotected. The Twins snapped him up. Now, on the relief side of on the side of things, they picked up Reed, also another Rule 5 guy. They didn't lose anybody to the Rule 5 draft, but they picked up 4 players: a starting pitcher, a reliever, and you know who else they picked up? Farther down, third baseman named Del Rosario, who's going to start at Low A Fort Myers, and Escalante, Rule 5 pickup, who's basically a first baseman. He'll start in Low A class, Fort Myers in Class A. Now, check this out. The player they picked up at the Rule 5 also plays third base, second base, and catcher. Escalante could be a good find for down the road. Twins do like versatile players. Versatile players is who they like, that they can move around. So they've already got 6. I've got 6 starters for Wichita to start the season. They'll only start with 5, I'm guessing. So one's going to either have to be moved up to AAA or cut or trade it. They've already got enough. They've got enough relief. 3 catchers on the depth chart. 2 first basemen. The guy they like, or they did like, former first-round pick, Aaron Sabato. Had a big year in the fall, played in the fall league, tied the league lead in home runs. He's a power-hitting first baseman. Not a prospect, though, but look for him. And then at second base, we've got 2 guys coming up. Both are prospects, both play second, and both are expected to be up in the Twins organization in 2025. Which means, if the Twins are set for 2025 in the big leagues, maybe they trade Julian and get through the year with Polanco. They always got Hellman ready to come up. Or maybe they keep Polanco, trade Julian, get someone in return, because in a couple of years we've got a couple of guys coming up through the ranks. I don't know how good they'll be, but the Twins organization themselves have classified them as top prospects, both in the same position, no less. Now, in talking about outfield, we've got Rodriguez, 40-man roster, added to the 40-man roster. He's only in Double A. Really good outfielder. Twins got him, one of the top outfielders in the international, as an international pickup a few years back. He's slated to come up to the big leagues by 2025, which is just really next season after the 2024 campaign. Rodriguez. There could be your answer long term for some of these players as well. Now down in the other ones here, we've got another really good outfielder, Rosario. He's sitting down at Class A Cedar Rapids, at high Class A, a prospect. And look at the year, 2024. He's expected to be in the big leagues this year, leapfrogging Rodriguez and coming up with Austin Martin. So there's a couple of your backups for Buxton right now. Rosario was a stud in the fall league as well. Really did well. Caught a lot of eyes down there. He could also be a trade bait as well, as we've got some depth in the outfield. The rest of the guys here coming up are 25 and 26. Now, I'll cover a last of the 24s. 2024, this coming season, we've got Salas, a utility infielder, playing at high A Cedar Rapids, expected to be up in the big leagues this year. Utility this year, that could take the place of Farmer, could take the place of Polanco. Polanco also has been playing third base because Julian was at second. So they got some guys that can play all over. I think this Salas kid could come in and make a quick jump by being very, very versatile and playing all over. Once again, he's going to start the year in Cedar Rapids. He won't be probably an August or September call-up, but if they need him or injuries, something comes sooner, Salas could be another guy that no one's even really been talking about. The rest of these players coming up that are in the shading here are 2025. A lot of starting pitchers here a couple of years out. And one person I want to name, I do want to touch on, is Mr. Jenkins. Here's our number one pick last year. Number one pick is Jenkins. They've got him in the outfield projected to be in the big leagues by the year 2026. A couple years out, but this guy can hit for power. He can hit for average. Tremendous defensively as well. Really good. And they've got another Rule of 5 pickup. But once again, at these lower levels, they've got an abundance of guys. Check this out. 50 on the Florida Gulf Coast. Roster of 50. A lot of these guys will be coming up in 26 and 27. The orange were players that were in the rookie league because they were just recently drafted last year. And then we've got the Dominican League down here. So 30 prospects. 36 in the 40-man roster. So we need 4 to fill that out. I don't think they're going to bring, I don't believe they're going to bring anyone up. This is where you could see that trade bait coming in. Some 4 guys in the 40-man roster via trade. That may be starting in Major League Baseball MLB with the Twins or AAA, but still in the 40-man roster. You can still do that. But this covers 223 players we just covered today with all the talent coming up here through the ranks. So don't get too itchy just yet. The Twins will not be in the free agent market, I don't believe. It'll be in the trade market. There could be a blockbuster trade. There could be just a medium-sized trade. There may be no trades. There may be a small trade. But we're sitting in a good position. Guys, where we have depth at certain positions that we don't need, that we could get someone in return. And the fans, it sounds like once the fans are really looking for beefed up relief pitching and perhaps another starting pitcher. But I think that we've heard things in the offseason here. What I've been seeing by reading the local newspapers is that the Twins are on a reduced payroll. The Twins are cutting back. The Twins are cutting back on their salaries. Just to clarify, that's not the case. They're not cutting back on anything. The players that are no longer here, Sonny Gray, some of the Maeda, Gallo in the outfield, first baseman Gallo, we signed last year to large contracts that are now expired and now done. Those contracts really beefed up or inflated last year's payroll to make it seem that we're cutting back this year. But now this year we're going to be back down to what I would call normal the next few years, normal payroll. This last year was just abundantly very high. Twins are not cutting back. They're not cutting back as a management decision to cut back on payroll. It's just the way that it ended up. Now keep in mind, Sonny Gray's gone. Maeda's gone. I hear a lot of folks on social media complaining that we need to replace 2 starters because we lost 2 starters. Once again, that's not the case. We're set for starters. We've got 5. One could argue that we have 7. But I think Ober and Varland will be the next guys there in there. So we don't need starters. If we pick up someone via trade, it certainly could be a starter. But it still means on the opposite end of that, we have to get rid of someone or send them down. Ober and Varland have spent a bunch of time in the minor leagues already. I don't see them going back down. These 3 up here certainly will not be in AAA. So you could see Sands and Winder down in AAA to start with. But the problem is you already have 5 starters. Look for maybe a move in the relief area or an outfielder. I don't know what they're planning on doing. Sonny Gray gone, by the way, means that the Twins do get the 33rd overall pick in next year's draft next July. So the Twins will get a first-round draft pick, number 21 overall, and then a compensatory pick, essentially, for those not familiar with it, an extra first-round pick in the 33rd spot. So the Twins will get 2 of the top 33 in the entire draft next year in July from the amateur draft. 2 in the top 33 picks. That's going to be huge. That's going to be, we've already got how many guys, how much depth on a relatively cheap payroll, and now we're going to get in only a matter of July. So look for the Twins to make a move, just in my opinion only, probably closer to spring training, maybe January, February timeframe. But don't rule out the fact that they don't make a move until late spring training or even early in the year. They did sign Kepler and Polanco to the one-year deal, and that was just to keep rights to them. Doesn't mean they're going to play them the whole year and start them the whole year, but we do have the rights to them. Someone's going to have to give up a lot in return for us to let them go. Remember to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, on our weekly shows for sports. Mainly cover Minnesota-based sports, also a lot of regional and national news. Once again, my name is Dan. This is Sports and Songs bonus episode, Minnesota Twins off-season update. Please leave your comments below and your suggestions and recommendations. Thanks for listening.